It's only 30 minutes. All right. Hello, everyone. This is Darcenovia here. I am back with another stream. This is the 29th Jedis Cantina. Shit. We're almost at a milestone, 30. What am I going to do for the 30th one? Well, I might do something for the 30th podcast. So, why this particular podcast am I doing? Why am I doing the topic why I believe the dual canon community will never work? Now, I got to preface something before I get to the meat of this topic because Star Wars fans will do what they've always done, take what I say out of context and make it seem like I'm saying something that I'm not. So I got to make this clear right now on the get-go. I am not against the idea of a dual canon community. Anyone that think that I would be that's just ridiculous. It goes against everything that I stand for currently in Star Wars. My point is in this stream that I'm going to make is why it will never work in practice. And it's not realistic. I mean, in small groups, a group of, let's say, like 10 people, or let's say people that that read Star Wars books and comics, canon and legends. Like if you're with a group of friends, that's fine if it's in a small scale. But what I'm talking about here is a large scale, not a small scale. Because small scale dual canon communities are fine. That there isn't that many people. There's people that you personally know. I'm mostly arguing from the perspective of people on the internet that you literally talk to for Star Wars fans, not people that you personally know or people that you regularly hang out with or talk to. Because it's absurd for me to even say this position like with absolute certainty. Now, for those of you who don't follow the legends and canon thing, you're probably going to be confused. So I will elaborate on that like in a bit. Because not everyone here follows Star Wars legends or canon. There's a lot of people that primarily follows the movies and the TV shows. And I recognize, and I'm speaking from experience here, that I'm the minority in the Star Wars community. I am the minority. So I recognize this fact. I'm even more of a minority when it comes to pushing the position that I'm pushing. Would I love in an ideal world for people of like-minded people who enjoy Star Wars outside the films, who want to dive deeper into this wonderful universe that exists? Yes, I would love for people to enjoy these things equally, even discuss the pros and cons of both legends and canon, talk about stuff that each canon does better. I mean, those conversations is something I don't mind having. Again, in a small group, when it's with people you personally know, this is not an issue. It really isn't. Hey, what's up, Mask Panther? It's always a pleasure to have you here. And it's unfortunate that a lot of the time, I'm just going to say this, a reason why I don't believe these kind of groups like would work is, now the idea is good, but in practice it has never worked. And I'm talking about from personal experience. Every time there's a group that accepts both canon and legends, one side is going to assimilate the other eventually. That's just how it works. If you have more canon people in the group, it's going to consume it, and the legends people are not going to feel comfortable, and it's just going to turn into petty little fights because you'll have someone from canon who doesn't like legends or who isn't fond of it say some stuff, and the same thing would apply to if it's fully assimilated into Legends. It just sucks. It's very childish, and I don't understand why it's so difficult. Well, I do understand, but I'm speaking as a fan of Star Wars. Why is it so difficult for this fandom to simply get along? And it's insane. No other fandom can I think of where there's multiple iterations of the same fucking franchise. Can people just basically it's like a religion, and that's the problem with these groups. Of course, this could also talk about Star Wars groups as a whole, why they suck, which I'll probably talk about in this stream. Of course, this doesn't just apply to dual canon in general. This could apply to the entirety of the Star Wars fandom, because the main issue with the Star Wars fandom as a whole is fans are not willing to accept that not everyone enjoys Star Wars the same way. Those who only follow the movies and the shows, who basically mock people who follow this stuff, who don't know anything about Star Wars outside this, they are act like a pretty snobby to people who follow everything Star Wars. The same also applies to those who follow everything. I mean, this whole idea is ridiculous that I shouldn't even have to talk about this in the first place. But I feel like nobody in the Star Wars community wants to talk about this, simply because it's an uncomfortable truth. It really is uncomfortable. As good as the dual canon concept is, it never will work. It has been doomed from the start. It really is doomed from the start. Well, that's what do you mean by that? Because Star Wars fans as a whole, those who follow the canon outside the films, are likely going to follow the comics or the novels, but I follow primarily the novels. I'm going by Legends here. I don't see any coronation. Honestly, a difference between them. I'm just primarily focusing on the topic of Legends and canon and why these groups just cannot coexist in a large scale. And I've done this as an experiment because I've tried this myself. In a small group, it's a wonderful community to have, especially if it's with people that you regularly talk to and hang out with. If you know these people decently well, you could basically have a thing where we all enjoy Star Wars casually. And that's the problem with this dual canon community, because I feel like for it to actually work, people would have to enjoy Star Wars on a casual way. And I don't mean casual in a condescending way for those who don't follow Star Wars as much as those who read stuff in the books, the comics, play the games, vice versa. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm saying people that just not have a stick up their ass when they're talking about Star Wars. Not get into these petty arguments over canonicity, or if something was and wasn't canon, or if something is canon, or just talk. And that's probably another topic I'd like to talk about probably in another video, but I'll probably just go on a tangent here. The word canon has literally become cancer in Star Wars. Canon is probably one of the most cancerous words you could ever mention in the Star Wars fandom. That and retcon. Those two words are basically fighting words. And I will stand on that hill. I will die in this hill that retcon and canon is probably the most toxic words that could be potentially used. Well, more canon than anything else, because retcon, because those who follow canon and Legends just do not know what the fuck a retcon is. And it's amazing how you could read so much of Star Wars canon, yet you can't even understand what basic storytelling things are. Like even something that seems harmless, like you make a joke about a retcon, and you have, like, I looked up, there was a meme on fucking Facebook that it was someone that was basically making a joke of Dave Filoni retconning stuff, and yeah, these idiots that thought this group was talking about the EU when they weren't talking about the EU, they were talking about canon, which goes to show you just how ignorant Star Wars fans are, that they literally can't tell the difference that between a canon novel or a Legends novel. I don't even pay attention to that. It is. And that's another reason why the dual canon community cannot work. It really is. The fandom is so toxic. Like, people don't know how to have fun in the Star Wars fandom. Like, we don't have any discussions about the stories anymore. If we ever did, honestly, I'm probably looking at the EU, my EU days with rose-tinted glasses, because this whole dual canon debate is like, it's gotten to the point where it's not fun to talk about Star Wars anymore. Like, in large groups, I have fun talking about it now. Like, I don't know. I really don't know. Like, yeah, it's ridiculous. It's like the dual canon community. It's just, there is no such thing. It cannot exist. I mean, how can a community exist when, like, 99.9% of the time a dual canon group is ever created, and I know this from experience, I've seen it firsthand, it gets assimilated by the Legends side or the canon side. There is no middle ground, and it's like literally impossible to be in the middle when it comes to these situations, because every time you say, you know what, I actually like something better in canon than I do in Legends, the Legends fans will fucking harass that person to oblivion, or someone in Legends fans say, you know what, I do like there's certain things I think the canon did better than Legends. You'll be attacked for being a Disney shill. Like, you're simply not allowed to like certain aspects of Star Wars or appreciate it on its own merit. And both of these sides do not allow Star Wars fans to enjoy Star Wars on its own merit. The obsession with canon, with the constant, like, basically nitpicking about certain details and various aspects of the franchise. It's like the internet is basically has made me to hate this Star Wars fandom pretty much. I know, fucking, it's a contradiction. I'm a hypocrite. If talking about, oh, I hate Star Wars fans, yet I fucking do Star Wars content. My channel was basically built on Star Wars content. I know some theoretical fucking fanboy of Disney, Star Wars, or Legends is going to come around and say that. I'm guilty as charged. Yeah, I love Star Wars. Does that mean I don't have a right to call out bullshit? Do I not have a right to call out fucking bullshit behavior from a fandom that supposedly welcomes fans of all groups, yet in practice, this dual canon community, this so-called dual canon community, doesn't exist. It can never exist. I mean, I challenge anyone to tell me I'm fucking not fucking telling the fucking to the honest to God truth. I challenge you. Look at groups that have Legends fans and try to talk about canon in a positive light and see what happens. Do the same for groups that are canon and talk about Legends. Like, majority of these groups are not fucking friendly to either side. Oh, but you want to? Why can't you just enjoy Star Wars like everyone else? Why why did these books matter? I mean, there's a bunch of books that no one cares about because I enjoy Star Wars in a different way than you. The very concept of the dual canon community, it's like, what the fuck does that even mean? It's not well defined, and I'm just going to say that because to this very day, you still have Star Wars fans that still take that quote from George Lucas out of context. The EU was never canon. That's the end all be all when it comes to these debates. Even if you don't even mention the canonicity of the EU, like in some of these fucking instances, like they mention a out of context quote, despite the fact George Lucas never used the word canon at all in any of his fucking interviews regarding the EU. He's never mentioned the word canon once. Yet these people will like, it doesn't matter. He still said it's not canon. It's like the whole fucking, like, this is why I hate this fucking group with a passion, because fucking Christ, man. Every single time it feels like there's anything in discussion about Star Wars, one of the things that get mentioned, the canon, retcon, like, canon to me has just become a cancer, this word. It's such cancer, and I'm just going to say this. Canon is fucking cancer. Not canon as if the current Star Wars canon, I'm talking about the word, has become literal cancer. Like, where's the discussion about these stories? Why aren't they being discussed on their own merit? Why are we just constantly going back and forth over retcons or canon rather than actually go deep dive into these stories? What makes them work? What doesn't make them work? Why should we care about them? Instead, people would better spend their time going back and forth over, this one thing is, was never canon. George Lucas never said this was canon. It's like, yeah, we're really going to take the words of a guy that flip-flops constantly on stuff regarding Star Wars. Yeah, we're really going to take George like word for it. Yeah, I guess if George Lucas' word is what matters, then I guess we shouldn't consider anything Disney puts out canon either. Fuck off. I would love to talk about that, but the only thing I'll say is fuck Disney. I mean, fucking good God. $10,000? I'll have to elaborate on that further in a future stream, because this will transform into a completely different stream if I don't get back on topic. And here, I'm not ranting about the new canon within itself, because I know some people are going to take it out of context, because there's some sensitive fucking people out there. It's like, when was the last time in these discussions did the actual stories be discussed? Because majority of these stories that get dismissed, let's just say for those who who never touch any of these stories, whether legends or canon, let's just be honest with ourselves, they can never tell you what happened in these stories, yet they say they're bad. They say they're bad. It's like, the EU is terrible. Okay, well, I have more experience with the EU, so I'm going to primarily talk about that here. So, bite me. I'm not as experienced with canon, but you could use that. You could use that as well. Oh, the new Jedi Order series is bad. I've heard that. It's like, oh, really? Have you actually read any of them? No. Then how do you know it's bad? And it's insert like childish insult, childish, like whatever they'll type later, and that's it. That they won't actually admit, maybe they shouldn't judge something that they haven't read, because I find it hypocritical. I can say, if they can say that the EU is mostly bad, majority of the people that say that have never read it. Yeah, when you say, if we're going to say canon's this, if we're going to say that, then majority of canon is bad, which I do think it is. What I've touched from canon, what I've read, most of it is bad. It's like my recent fucking stream on the High Republic. I stopped reading it simply because it's bad. Like, why would people read something they dislike so much? That's why I don't buy what a lot of these like haters of the EU say. Because why would you spend so much time? At least people in the EU part of the fandom, when they don't waste their time ranting about particular books to the extent these people do. But then again, I don't want to be too charitable to the EU people here because they do the same fucking shit. Like say stuff about Canon's works with despite never engaging with it. Oh, the High Republic is terrible. It's like, yeah, well, I know it. I know it's terrible. I read enough of it to basically just to say, you know what, this isn't worth it. But I'm not going to say I'm an expert on it or know it more than some people. That is true. I know. I'm sorry this is not going to be as long because I'm running out of things to say and I don't want to repeat myself. So I'm just going to reiterate this one last time because just to try to make things clear. A dual canon community is not an idea that I'm opposed to. Because I think the idea of having Star Wars fans from Legends and canon enjoying the same universe together is a beautiful thing. Talking about these stories, what we like or don't like about these stories, or what make these stories work, it's a beautiful thing. And I think that's something that's worth like trying to build. At least in a small scale that is, not a big scale. I'm done trying to build a positive Star Wars community. I'm done with that. So no one's gonna I'm never gonna do that again. And if someone could prove me wrong, I'll gladly admit that I'm wrong. I don't believe we should give up on the idea, though I'm just laying down the harsh reality. There is no exception to this. Uh, it's the rule. Unless you keep it in a small group with a small amount of people, it's going to be overrun by those who are canon or legends fans. That's just how it is. I've been involved in many of these groups. I know from experience. Even before I was open to the idea. I saw writing on the wall immediately. Because to me, it's not fair for either people, for those who just want to enjoy whatever version of Star Wars they enjoy in peace, to basically having to argue over fucking like this and this and this story, or oh, this story is not canon or never was canon, or arguing. It's like, oh yeah, that's like, or just or gloating. I'm talking about EU fans gloating about Disney Star Wars basically treating their canon the same way they treated the EU. It's like neither side is really productive, and that's why I'm saying I don't think any side should actually be gloating or fucking acting like they're all superior because they both suck. Legends and canon fucking fans both suck for the most part because they can't get through their thick skull that not everyone enjoys Star Wars in the way that they do. I mean, Star Wars fans, we should be the most diverse fandom out there, but we really aren't. Considering like that's a topic for a different day, so I won't elaborate on it too much. Considering so many of them are simps for the Empire, which is already sus when you consider the people's politics who are simps for the Empire. Yeah, let's just leave it at that. Then you have like canon fans, for the most part, a bunch of rad libs. So we basically have fascists in Legends and fascists in canon. Not all of them, by the way. If there's those of you who read, it's like, oh my God, Darth Sinovia is calling people who read canon fascists. No, I don't think you are. I'm just saying majority of the people I've interacted with in Star Wars as a whole are fascists, okay? Calm your tits, okay? I'm not saying you're a fascist. I'm just saying that from what my experience of interacting with both fandoms, one of them is are a bunch of rad libs, and the other is a bunch of fascists. And yeah, I hope one day a dual canon community does get built that actually is able to thrive. But as far as I'm concerned, that battle is no longer mine to fight. I'd already fought that battle, and I have no intention of ever trying to build it again. I failed multiple times to build a community because people don't care enough. And if people care more about this shit than I do, then and it's basically one-sided, there's no way that I'm going to fucking bother. Anyway, I know this is on the short side, but then again, this is a topic I wanted to get off my chest. I don't know what I'm going to talk about next time, though. I might talk about the canon thing, like I elaborated, like I said earlier. Again, that's enough to rant about in another stream on how why the word canon is cancer. I cannot promise when that will happen, but look forward to that in the future. I will discuss that, how canon, in my opinion, is a cancerous word in Star Wars and has become a cancerous word. So, yes, stay safe, everyone. And to end this, and I'm going to end this from now on, all my Star Wars related streams, it is morally correct to pirate everything Star Wars. You're not stealing, you're preserving.